Despite the ongoing obstacles that this pandemic has thrown our way, the Columbus Symphony somehow exceeded their outreach to children. Today on City Chat, Executive Director of Columbus Symphony, Denise Regg, is here to talk about how their organization was able to make a difference during these difficult times. Denise, it's so great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, thank you so much, Josie, for having us. We're actually really excited to be here.
That's awesome. I just want to get to the main question. Why does this Columbus Symphony feel that outreach to children is so important?
Well, I think there are some really, really obvious reasons. Um, from a purely selfish perspective, of course, we want children to be a part of who and what we are so that they come home to us again later on when they're adults. So that's critically important, but much more important, Josie, is what the statistics and the studies show about how involvement with the arts can affect our children, in particularly music. And many of our children are themselves budding musicians. They're signing up for their music lessons at school. But we certainly think it's really important to help our children be centered in that space. And the studies, again, just go on and on and on about how children who are involved with music are better test takers, they're less, they're more likely to attend school on a regular basis without cutting out on school. But it just expands a whole new avenue for them, and it helps them understand themselves and one another better. And we really do believe in the power of music to connect us all. You don't have to think about it too hard. Music is a feeling process for the large part. And it really, really is just important for us to keep reconnecting to our own humanity through it. And our kids are not getting enough of that anymore.
You guys had a goal to reach 50,000 children. That's before the pandemic hit and threw everything off. How were you guys able to really pivot and change? Like a lot of small businesses and organizations just were, everybody was just kind of frozen. What did you guys do to exceed this goal that you guys had pre-pandemic?
Well, we were very, very fortunate in a way. The board had just come off of an 18-month period of doing a new strategic plan. The new strategic plan, which was approved unanimously by the board in January of the year COVID struck, really, gave us a mission of inspiring and building a strong community through music. So the pandemic actually afforded us the perfect opportunity to show how we might do that. It's really important when there is a really difficult period, not to be the deer caught in the headlight of the car. Like I keep telling people, that deer gets run over. So the idea was to not allow it to stop us. We did what everybody else did. We were stunned for 2 weeks, and then we immediately set to work on figuring out what we could do for this community. And we took that very, very seriously because symphonies have a history of when things are not going well or in the dark days of being there for their communities to help elevate things and to help shine the light into the darkness. We took that very, very seriously, and no more seriously than we did for our children, where we just created innumerable amounts of new product. So we created two children's websites, one's for elementary school students, one's for teenagers. But any parent, caregiver, a teacher, anybody can go on that website with children, and they can download, they can play games, they can download coloring pages, they can just get information in general. There's lots of videos with our musicians. Our musicians produce more than 85 videos for those websites. So there you can teach your kids the various instruments and hear the various instruments play. But so we did that. We actually went to the people who created this program called Mindful Music Moments. And last year, there were 7 schools enrolled in that program. That is a program that we absolutely love because it gives a nice, safe, centered space for children. So either at the beginning of the day or after recess, when you're trying to recenter the kids, you bring them in, and the person running the program at that school gives them a thoughtful idea to ruminate on, and then they play a piece of music, and they do that every day of the week. So it helps the kids center and to be mindful and to be thoughtful, and to really just take a moment, take a moment to reconnect. So we made that program basically free for the Columbus City Schools if they couldn't afford it. And what happened was we went from 7 schools enrolled in that program to 30 schools enrolled in that program.
Whoa.
So we did that during the pandemic. And the great thing about that is you hit all the children in the school. So whether you're remote or whether you're in the classroom in person, it can be shared with everybody through either medium. So that was huge. Then in addition, this is one of the things we are most proud of. We have been partners with the Columbus City Schools for a long time, but we knew that there was deeper opportunity there. During COVID, the city schools adopted our lesson plan. We had 2 lesson plans at the moment and have embedded it in the third grade curriculum.
Whoa.
So the all third graders in Columbus City Schools this year learned the program called the Instruments of a Symphony, where there were short videos where one of our musicians talked to them a little bit about the musical instrument, and then they played on it. And then the culminating event for that semester, so to speak, was a video done by our music director, which put them all together to play for the children so they could see also the lesson of cooperation and collaboration, and how when you come together, you can make far more beautiful music than when we're all doing it separately. So we did that lesson. The lesson plan that we're in the middle of right now is one that's targeted at composers. So helping children to differentiate and know one composer from another composer. And we intend to keep much of this going post COVID. I mean, there's absolutely no reason why we should have these great ideas and these great opportunities for our children. And when we go back to normal activity, we put them aside. We're not going to. We're going to continue. I'm going to tell you this coming year because we think it's so important. Music is so important to the healing process. We are actually getting very involved right now, the Columbus Symphony, in a campaign that's called We're Here for You. And so we're here for our children through all these programs. We're also here for families. Children, of course, and families go hand in hand. But we believe COVID has been traumatic for families as well. So we intend to make all children between the ages of 6 and 16 free in the Masterwork Hall next year, all season, with their
Wow.
parents, so that we can have the whole family in there and they can share a moment and they can rebuild and get a little respite from the stress of what they've been through. We think it's critical to the healing process of the community.
That's so like amazing to hear the story of Columbus Symphony and how it has progressed and just like thrived so well like during this time. I mean, the Columbus Symphony, I never really thought that it was like educational, like education focused, but it seems like, during this pandemic, you guys have discovered new outlets to really expand that. And I just think that that's really great. Has Columbus Symphony, have you guys always been pretty education focused, like towards children? Like I know you guys had that original goal of 50,000 children.
Yes, so let me tell you, a couple of years ago, we decided to put that whole idea on steroids. We really did. We were going to really make sure that our children were more aware of things and our children were given more opportunities that really only music can afford them. I mean, you can do it, I shouldn't say only music can afford it, but music is a very convenient tool through which to do some things. Even this whole idea of having your children take a time out a little bit and to think about something important. Music can be used in so many ways. So 2 years ago, we were only serving 23,000 children. And we said, okay, we were going to set as a goal that we were going to double that number in the next 3 years. So during COVID, which was only 2 years after we made that commitment, we were able to hit that mark. So depending on how you measure it, because the 23,000 probably had some duplication, but when you put things on a much higher and faster track, you start hitting more duplication. So just in raw numbers, it's 23 versus 64,000 this year.
That's
If
great.
we try to account for duplication, we're probably at about 23 to 55. But either way, we have more than doubled them in 2 years, doubled the number in 2 years. And it's just been, we've kept all the youth orchestras going during COVID. They're all going. We're having our showcase concert with all the various age groups just this Sunday in person. So we implemented protocols early on, got them approved by the state and by the city. Also had the infectious disease department over Ohio Health take a look at them with really remarkable outcomes. We haven't had a single case of COVID traced back to the symphony, and we've been operating in person for both our children and for adults since October.
Wow. You guys are great. So how has the response been from kids, teachers, parents in the community?
Oh, well, of course, it's easiest for us to get responses from the community and the teachers. It's harder for us to reach out directly to children. But we have got actually a whole document that has nothing but comments from teachers. And then we had, it's amazing. I'll tell you, the outpouring from the symphony family, the community for the symphony family during COVID has been amazing. So when we do something live, we get so many comments that we started tracking them on YouTube. All these comments would come up, right? So the third concert we did with the live component while we were streaming it, because we were doing both, right? We got 5 pages of comments that we actually sent on just that one concert. 5 pages of comment from the community cheering us on, basically, that we forwarded on to our musicians, because our musicians have been a big part of this. They have hung in there. We managed to keep them all employed. We got a mention in the New Yorker for being one of the few symphonies that have really kept its core group of musicians and its staff in place, because, and we did that with knowing that we had serious ground that we could cover and make a difference for this community during this time. And we did it and could do it because the symphony was supported by the community. So you know what, we made, everything was free until January. So we weren't making any money from ticket sales. Everything we did was free until January. But because people's donations were continued, we were able to keep everybody in place and be able to do all this work for the community. We did 20 free concerts out in the community in September in 9 days. So we even went out to Somerset. We had 600 people in Somerset. It's only a community of 1,300. But the symphony is starting to differentiate between the underserved, which of course we've always worked to serve. We are now looking at what we call the unserved. It's people who live in outlying areas who just don't have access. So we're looking at access much more broadly now. But the outpouring and the support from the community has been just amazing. And I have to tell you, I'm just going to throw this in, Josie. We want to thank the media too, because all the good work we did would not be known were it not for groups like yours, right? So people sharing with the community what we were doing certainly helped us. And it was very important, because people had hunkered down and we had all gotten a little foggier about getting information.
Are there changes that were made this season that even as things start to get back to normal, you feel that are important to continue? I know you mentioned a couple things, and you can kind of tie that into the question of, what plans do you have to reach more children this upcoming year and beyond?
Okay, so we actually just had a conversation with the Mindful Music people. We're going to continue that program and we will work to expand it. So last year, like I said, the year before, we had 7 schools. This past year, we had 30 schools plus 10 preschools. So through that program, and we haven't, like I said, agreed that we're going to continue it, all preschools are free who want to participate.
Wow.
And then we will work to enhance the amount of money we were able to pay them with additional money to expand it further into the schools, so that we go beyond just Columbus City schools and we move into some of the sort of underserved outlying areas. We intend to make all Title I schools free at our educational programs that we run. And so that has some margin of difficulty, because we have to build on economy of scale, because we really can't afford to just double it outright. Right. But we can do 2 concerts back to back. That way we're paying rent once, we're paying our musicians for just that day, et cetera, et cetera. So we will look to be adding schools, hopefully to double that numbers we currently do. And then we just have to figure out how to get the school buses paid for so that we can get the kids down here the transportation becomes the big issue with that.
Yeah.
The other thing is we normally have about 25 schools that want us to come visit them. The most we've ever been able to do is 14 in 1 year. So what the symphony is doing this year is we're looking at how we do those programs and when we do those programs. And we are hoping to expand the number of schools we reach this year from the highest we've ever done of 14. 10 to 12 is more typical. We intend to get to 20 schools this year so
Wow.
that we actually go, again, there's pros and cons to everything. When we go to the school, we can hit every student in that school. Every student in that school gets the experience. What the student doesn't get is the experience, the education programs that we do in the hall offer of not just that they're curriculum based, which they are, we provide curriculum materials, but also that I am a big, big believer, we are at the symphony here, a big, big believer that our children deserve the full complement of what it means to go to a concert.
Yeah.
It's the musical experience. It's also being in the Ohio. It's knowing that you belong in a place like the Ohio. I just think it's so critically important. So, you gain some in one category and you lose something in the other one, but pick up something else. But again, I think our goal is to both expand in both of those areas this coming year.
Those
So,
are great, great goals. I'm sure that you guys are going to be able to accomplish them. You guys are so ambitious, and it's just really so uplifting to hear the Columbus Symphony story.
well, I so appreciate that. You know what? We really, really do live to be relevant and impactful. We are just diehard believers in the power of music to make a positive difference in every single individual's life. And so every individual probably deserves more music than they would be able to get in a typical environment. And we are going to do everything we can to make sure that we're there to provide as much as we can.
To close our program, we have a special performance by the Columbus Symphony Youth Orchestra. I'm Josie Smith. Thanks for watching City Chat on CTV.